How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right. What's up, Kelly? Let's just jump in. People have been listening to my stuff here. They see my thing, but now I got you on here. And people are like, all right, who is this person? And they want to know. So, Kelly, who the heck are you? What do you do? And what is it that you want to be able to share today?
So I'm Kelly. I'm an integrative nutritionist and a workplace wellness specialist. So basically, I work with people and businesses. I help them learn how to support their body through nutrition and lifestyle, because you can eat the most perfect diet, but if you're stressed, then it doesn't really matter. You're going to still have issues. So that's the integrative part. But yeah, I help people learn how to support their body. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love it.
How did you get into it? Tell us the story of all right, I had to go through this to get here. How did you get here?
Gosh, okay. So there are a lot of moving parts and a lot that happen in a very short amount of time. So I'll try to keep it so it's kind of easy to follow. I've always had a peaked interest in nutrition. Just growing up, I did competitive gymnastics, so I do 20 plus hours of practice a week. And then as I got older, you have to pick a sport. I chose soccer, and I was playing that all year round. And then when you're doing any sort of competitive sport, they teach you food is fuel, and you have to eat to support your body. And that was just always very cool to me. And then in high school, I did track to keep in shape for soccer. And my last 3 months of high school, I was like, pole vaulting sounds really cool. I'm going to try that. My school didn't offer it just because I went to a really small private school. We had a track and field team, but we didn't have a track or field. But I found a club to practice at. And so I talked to my coach. He was like, if you practice there, you can compete for us. So that's what I did. And I did decent for someone who had never done it before. I went pretty far with it, just in our county and states competitions. And so I had a few friends who were at the college that I was going to go to who were on the track team, and they're like, you should talk to the coach. So I was like, okay. So I honestly, I always saw myself trying out for soccer. That's what I knew. That's what I was good at. But I track season started first, and I was like, okay, let's just go for it. And coach was like, yeah, you could be on the team, which was amazing. It was a Division I school, so it was surreal, but I was still learning the fundamentals of how to pole vault because I'd only done it for 3 months. So I try to do everything I can to kind of have an edge, because I was just I was still new to it. My teammates, so incredible, so strong. They've been doing it for years. So I was just I can't afford to not focus on my eating habits as well. And they had a lot of cool resources. They had a dietitian that worked with us if we wanted to. So I took so much advantage of that. I saw him very often. I learned a lot from him, and it was really incredible to see firsthand how nutrition really can directly impact your fitness results. So that's one part of it. And then, okay, so backtrack-ish, my husband and I got married really young. So we were 18 and 19, so just barely out of high school, just starting college. And 4 days after we celebrated our first anniversary, Caleb, my husband, he hadn't been feeling well for 2 weeks, and then he got very bad very fast. So he literally lost 15 pounds in one night. And so we took him to the emergency room. He was in ICU for about a week. And if you know anything about blood sugar, which I knew nothing until we were in that position, his blood sugar was over 1,000, which is unheard of. They were surprised he was even alive at that point. So thankfully he's okay. But we then found out that he's a type 1 diabetic. So that was a big life experience, or a learning experience. And his medical staff was incredible, but it was the first time I ever noticed a little bit of a gap when it came to the nutrition side of things. Um, I remember, like, he was a 19-year-old guy. They eat a lot, and they had him on the same diet like the little elderly woman next door to him was on. And I was like, he needs food. Like, he lost so much weight. So I talked to his endo, and I was like, hey, like, what can I bring him? Like, like, just tell me what I can feed him. And she was like, oh, well, like, just talk to the nurses about that. I don't know. And then I went to the nurses, and the nurses were like, this is the diet the doctor ordered for him. So it was like a lot of like back and forth, and it was a little bit concerning. But anyway, we left the hospital essentially thinking he was going to have to be on a low carbohydrate diet. And thankfully, that's not the case. He eats his carbs and he handles his blood sugar very well. He's really cool. Just fitness wise, like I even just like watching him, like I learn a lot, and I help with the food because I love food so much. But yeah, so that happened, and that's when I started to really do some research. So I had like a little bit of experience working with a dietitian. Um, and I liked what I was learning, so I started to research more. And then this happened, so then I started to really like dive into it, and I learned more about like root cause, understanding insulin resistance, and how that affects blood sugar and how to minimize it. Um, so around that same time, um, so Caleb was diagnosed in December of 2019. Then July of 2020, I wasn't feeling well, ended up going to the hospital, and I found out I had cancer. So I had stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And like I always joke, like I had a really easy cancer. Um, but I really did. Like I had a good one. Like if you had to pick one, I feel like I always say like I picked a good one. Just because it's very treatable, it has a high success rate. And so it wasn't very scary for me. And I had reached a point health-wise where when I found out I had cancer, that was the best news I could have received. Like I was so genuinely happy because I could tell you for 2 years I was experiencing symptoms and I kept writing them off as normal. And to some degree, like everyone experiences them, which isn't normal, but we normalize it so much. So I kept kind of writing it off. And I was obviously an extreme case, like I had cancer, but um, a lot of people feel like crap and they don't always have like a diagnosis to validate that. And like that's really concerning. Like in hindsight, when I look back, like, oh my gosh, like how could I have been so out of tune with my body and like thought it was normal to live the way I had been living? Like I could go on for hours about every symptom I was experiencing. Like I reached a point for like every night for about 6 to 8 months, I was taking ibuprofen because I physically like before bed because I couldn't sleep. And during the day I could kind of like ignore it. But like even just carrying like my coffee mug, like my hand would shake because it hurt so badly. So and I was like, oh, I'm just weak. Like everybody gets pain. Like that's normal. Mine was like shooting down my spine and into my arms and my legs. And I was like, it's okay. And then just other things like severe anxiety, which I never experienced until I was experiencing it, and it was just so foreign to me. But anyway, all of that was going on, and I started to shift my learning between like Caleb's diagnosis and my own. My view of food went from more than just fuel. It's like food can and should be our primary source of medicine. And I think our bodies are so incredibly intelligent, and they can do so much healing if we just give ourselves the proper tools through diet and through lifestyle. Um, and it's hard to sift through the noise around like what's healthy and what's not, because like if people would look at me, and I actually before I went to the hospital and was diagnosed, I went to a doctor like 3 days before that because I finally was like, okay, something's up. And she looked at me and she said, you're skinny, you're young, there's nothing wrong with you. And I left and I was like, you know what? She's probably right. I I didn't know that. Like, I didn't think for myself. Um, so anyway, all that to say is I've learned a lot with food and have seen firsthand how much good it can do. And I just think it's so encouraging that your body can do so much healing because the last part of it, sorry, I'm going on. But the last part of that was again, cancer was like great news. I was like, yes, this is something that can be fixed. This has like we're gonna be good. It's been 2 years of hell. We're gonna do 6 months of chemo. We're gonna be fine. And I had friends and family members who so well-meaning, but and they would reach out and tell me how like, yeah, it's like really hard. I had like my aunt went through this, or my mom, or like my uncle, or whatever. And like they still have symptoms and they finished like 20 years ago. And it was like, excuse me? No. Like like I don't want to feel sick anymore. Like I did my time. Like we're not like I don't want to accept that. And so maybe it was like a hint of stubbornness with it, but I really started to look into like bioenergetic nutrition, learning how like metabolic health matters and just how to support the body through that. And like I understand that to some degree, I basically pump poison through my body for 6 months. So every so often, maybe I'll have a day where I'll get winded going up the stairs. And it's like, that's not fun. But it's so rare now that I'm very grateful for it. And I want people to know like how great their bodies can feel. And you don't have to be super sick to want to find healing, if that makes sense. But yeah.
That's the story. That's a lot. There's a lot going on in this story. This is pretty great, actually. And there's a couple directions I'm going to go in with you on this one. I really like that you started off with the idea that food is fuel, and then you found out food is medicine. And I think there's a lot of things that, as far as there's a couple of things I want to get into with you, that are some of the things that people are putting in their body that they think is supposed to be healthy, that is really unhealthy. And there's a lot of things I think, especially, what country are you in?
US.
You're in U.S. I also am in U.S.
United
But I was
States.
just in Costa Rica, and they have the same brands but different ingredients. And I think
Yeah.
you've noticed that too. Other countries are like, when they'll come in here, they'll go, "Why does your brand here have stuff in it we don't have back home?" And you're noticing that there are certain patterns and certain things that go, "Hey, wait a second, this is linked to being very unhealthy, even though it says healthy on the bottle." And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of those that I can get into, as far as like the food is fuel versus the medicine is actually not medicine, like that kind of thing we can get into.
Oh yeah.
I got a couple things. First off, pole vaulting. How did it go? Were
I
you
loved
good at
it.
it?
I wouldn't say that. For someone who's never done it, I'm good compared to my teammates. Horrible. But
I
I mean, it was fun. I wish I could have done it longer. I kind of like I was sick before I knew I was sick. I thought I was just super lazy. I literally just stopped showing up to practice, started failing my classes, like I just slept all day.
yeah.
Um, but before that, it was a lot of fun. And oh my gosh, I think everyone should try it at least once in their life. Like
Oh,
it's not too hard, it's
I do
not
not
scary.
agree
You
with
land on a
that.
squishy mat.
Oh no, I know people that should not try that. So no, I actually have a pole vault story. I'm gonna pepper in on a bunch of these pieces because you have some good points that we're gonna get into. But I was pole vaulting in high school also, and I only did it for like the 1 year, because I remember we were doing one of those practices where we had the bar at like 14 feet, and we would go up and practice kicking the bar off so we can practice being upside down and kicking the bar off. But I didn't go fast enough, so I hit the bar off and then just slid down the bar like a fireman.
Oh
I
my
didn't hit the
gosh.
mat, and so I went right into the box, but I was wearing 1/4 inch spikes, and I have a scar still right across here from my spikes going right through my whole shin, and it was ripped so deep and so wide they couldn't even stitch it. So I still
No.
have a big scar like this long from pole vaulting. Needless to say, they stopped saying everybody should pole vault because they didn't want me doing it anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop saying
I had the strength, I just didn't go fast enough, and I just ended up just causing an injury. And they're like, "That's not so great." But
that.
pole vaulting was fun until it's one of those. What's that terrible saying? Like it was fun until it wasn't. It was one of those
Yeah.
things. It's good until it's not. My girl hates that quote. By the way, she's like, "Stop saying that. It's stupid." But it's a big thing with the food as medicine thing. I want to go back into something that you said that I think that we need to go further into. When you started seeing the results of what was happening with Caleb and yourself, you started seeing something's going on here, and you started seeing the advice. The advice people were giving. You're young, you're skinny, you're fine. Oh, you know what? It should be no big deal. It should be this, or you should just have to do this now. And you started seeing the advice. You said a sentence, I saw a gap. I saw a gap in the advice. I saw there was something missing. There's something not there, which sparked the challenge. It sparked the like, what is missing here? That can't be right.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go further into when you started having that aspect, because that gets a lot more into what I teach, is being able to go like, wait a second, that needs to be challenged. There's something missing here. What am I missing? And being
Yeah.
able to apply that warrior aspect. If I'm going to go towards the resistance, I'm going to go towards the missing piece. I'm going to find I'm investigating this. What did you find when you started going, wait a second, I hear the advice from the people at the building, but you're missing something. What did you start to find, and how did this apply to your expertise?
So at first it was a little alarming because even talking to like the nutritionist, I had again like this, it was a piqued interest before I had like this minor background in it, but I knew more than the average person. And talking even to the nutritionist that they had sent to us, I was like, I could do your job and I feel like I could do it better. And like this is like no offense to her. She was incredible. She was so sweet. She's amazing. But that like that's not good. But it was also kind of nice because then I started to realize like we take such an authoritarian approach when it comes to pretty much everything now, especially with medicine. We don't think to question like anyone who has a degree behind their name. Um, and it's just like, it's just not great. We stopped thinking for ourselves. And so that was kind of like my aha moment when I was talking to them. I was like, okay, well, I guess when we leave the hospital, I'm just going to have to do a lot of reading on my own and learn for myself. And so that happened. And so I started reading and I started going more into like the alternative health space and learning about that. And then with myself, when I talked to the doctor and she was like, you're skinny, you're fine. I was like, you're probably right because you get used to like if someone was looking at me, they'd be like, you're fine. Like there's literally nothing wrong with you. I was fit, I was getting movement in, I was eating what I thought at the time was like a very healthy diet just because it was being like pretty restrictive. And then I started, uneducating and then re-educating myself. And I started to understand what a healthy body actually looks like, that like it's not just fat or skinny. And I think that there's an overcorrection where some people then think you can be unhealthily overweight and still be healthy. And like that's not really true either. But um we then like think, oh, like thinnest is like healthiest. But when I was at my thinnest, I was my sickest. And so I started to like want to know like, well, like what does a healthy body look like? Like not look like, but feel like. And it's more like, what's your energy like? Like, do you have a stable mood? For females, especially, we have this reputation of being like super moody. And like, that's not how we should be. Like, I, I kind of joke, but I'm also like kind of serious when I say I think most women are just walking around we're just hangry all the time. Like people undereat so much. Um, and so anyway, like, do you have a stable mood? Are you generally like happy, calm, like, or do things like set you off easily? Are you overly sensitive to stress, or can you handle it pretty well? Do you have restful sleep, or do you wake up a lot at night? How is your skin? Do you have, like acne or rashes, or is it like pretty like smooth and healthy? Do you have good hair, strong nails? Are you able to maintain like a healthy body weight without trying to, yo-yo diet? Um, for women who are like in their reproductive years, do you have PMS, or like do you have like no problem with that? For men and women, like how's your libido? Like is it like healthy? Do you not have it? Um, all those things are better markers for your overall health. And even just something as simple as like, are you someone who's like always has like cold hands, cold feet? Or are you generally like pretty comfortable in the room? All of these things are much better indicators of like overall health. But yeah, that kind of answered, but kind of didn't. I think I went on a tangent.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have. And you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more, or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff, and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story. No, I'm gonna give you full permission to tangent. And like, just so
Gosh.
you know, as far as like the way I communicate with stuff, in case, I'm not saying you are, but in case there's any part of you that feels like you have to hold back or have to be hyper PC, speak your mind. Listen, you're like, oh, I was working with this one lady and I was like, I think I can do your job better than you, but she's amazing and she's incredible and she's all, I'm like, no, she wasn't, because you didn't know what you were doing. And you're like, I could do better than you. So maybe she wasn't amazing and incredible. Maybe they're not the right words for someone who's like, you're
Not at
inspiring
her job.
me to do better than you, because this is not that good. Like, it's not amazing, not incredible. It's permission to be authentic.
Okay.
Slay some shit. If something is not right, say it. It's fine. This is not a PG necessary thing. This isn't for the Disney crowd. Be real. You're good.
No, I just don't want to hurt feelings. I don't know.
Well, that's their battle. Let them worry about their feelings. You worry about how to heal people's health. You tell them to eat better and then see if their mood is still good about their hurt feelings for needing to improve. That's fine.
It's actually so true.
That's fine. Be real. Don't hold back on people. You're right with this skinny fat thing. There's a lot of different things that people misunderstand. They're like, because you look good in an outfit means you can't be sick. It's like, yeah, that's not true. Like, I like your indicators. Look at these different things. How does this measure up? How is that holding up? Are you having this issue or this issue? It's tough to go like, I mean, you look skinny, so you're probably fine. Like, no, there's probably a better way to measure this.
Yeah, I think the reason people think like, oh, skinny healthy is because if you are healthy, you'll be within the range of like a healthy body weight. But there's a wide range of that. However, you could also be thin and unhealthy. And people just like don't realize that.
Well, you're seeing also, like, look how complicated it is with like, and we're going to go into some social media stuff. We're going to get into, like, you see people who are going to extremes in their body shape, or the, whether go into the guys in extreme, like, extracurricular additions to make it so that this 21-year-old dude looks better than Arnold did when he was the Mr. Olympia. And you're like, how was this gym rat just better than like the world champion at a certain time? It's like, well, we're clearly pumping stuff in that's going to be a little bit extra. There's guys who are less than 1% body fat, and that's supposed to be healthy. And you're like, yeah, I don't even know how you got to less than 1% body fat naturally, because you look at people who have to be natural, and I'm going to call it out. Matt Frazier, for example, he's the world's fittest man over and over again in CrossFit. The dude looks great. He's in great shape, but these Instagram guys or these young dudes are, technically look way better than the fittest man on earth because he can't be on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And so he doesn't look as fit as this guy who's got his Instagram account up, but this guy would run circles around this dude who looks more fit, who's really healthier.
Mm-hmm.
And so This is the misinterpretation of, well, you look amazing, it must be healthy. But I've known bodybuilders and people in that field where they're like, it was the most unhealthy I've ever been. I was extremely dehydrated. I was so restrictive. I was cut off on all of these different things. I was moody and angry. I was really struggling through the day. I was, having a hard time keeping up with the resources my body needed to maintain the weight. Like, what are your opinions when you start seeing the social pressures of things that are like, enhancedly unrealistic? And on the female side also, like, the plastic surgery to augmentations and stuff, like, how do you measure what's healthy and not healthy mentally and physically?
I've just given up trying to figure it out on social media. Even at one point I was like trying to find someone who like workouts I would want to like maybe learn from. I see a woman and I'm like, oh, like she looks like she's fit. And then she's talking about how she's had like different surgeries. And I'm like, wait, what? So I've kind of just given up on that. But it is interesting that we've gotten so far out of tune with our bodies that at some point we started to associate restrictiveness and willpower with health. And that's like the farthest thing from the truth. I think that like we need to listen to our bodies, so take someone who is being super restrictive with their diet during the day. They are eating like 1,200 calories and they are doing their HIIT workouts and they are just like thriving with that. But then nighttime comes and all of a sudden like they're really craving like potato chips or they need chocolate. And like they're like, oh, well, you know what? It's just like my lack of willpower, or I need to have more willpower. Or you have someone who maybe just gives into those cravings. I think those cravings are telling us something. You crave really salty foods when you're stressed because one of the nutrients that gets depleted during the stress response is sodium. And so your body's naturally trying to tell you like, look, we're stressed, we need extra support. And that's why you're like, oh, potato chips. And so that doesn't necessarily mean just like down like 8 bags of potato chips, but understanding what those cravings mean and then how to appropriately respond is so important. And learning to rest, like when you need rest, and just follow all those cues. But yeah, with the social media stuff, I think the best thing anyone could do is just educate themselves, because I even tell like my clients, I'm like, don't take my word for it. Read it for yourself. Like you come up with your own opinion on this, because like we need to start thinking for ourselves a little bit better. And I think that I have never felt more confident in my food choices until I learned how different nutrients work in the body and how to really gauge how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you with like the go look it up, but there's an issue there. There's a complication. Look it up where? There's different algorithms, and let's be realistic here. Let's be real. I'm in mental health, and I would argue that you also are in a degree of mental health, because the physical aspect of it is a byproduct of your mental health. However you're doing here is going to affect what this looks like. And I feel like this is a representation of how healthy this is. Like your
Yeah.
body will show you how healthy your mind is. Like this, it matches. In any case, if you say go look it up, go look it up. We have never in human history had more access to information about health, mental health, physical health, fitness, workouts, you name it. We've never had more access to information. And yet we've also never had as high of an obesity epidemic. Cancer's never been higher, and mental health is through the roof. So
Yeah.
what do you think it is for the look it up aspect? How are they supposed to look it up when even the things you may be looking up may be in an algorithm that's corrupting the research? What do you think?
Good question. I'll usually give some sources and some like information that I think would be good to read, but with it is hard to kind of like know what to look up, like you're gonna see one person say like be a vegan, like that's the best thing. You're gonna see someone else who's like only eat meat and like that's the best thing. And maybe not so much, I don't know if look it up is the best term, but like to some degree like research. But learn how to kind of sift through different nutritional advice, even um, fitness advice, and look through the lens of does this align with my physiology for a male or a female? How like this sounds kind of basic, but like is this how like was this like kind of like what they would have done 100 200 years ago, and like consider like the ancestral like aspect to it.
It gets tricky
um
though. People have a hard time
yeah
with this. Even like I've been in the fitness realm before I went mental health. Like I was in physical health. I'm over 40 and I'm doing all right for over 40. Like, I'm keep it pretty clean, but I'm not perfect by any means, and nor do I try to be. But
yeah
I'm over 40 years old. I'm in good shape for over 40 years old. I'm happy with this. And things are going well. But I still would know that if I were to say, look it up right now, you're not wrong because people have different things. Is it the lion diet? Do I go that direction because there's autoimmune issues? Or do I go into vegan and I go only vegetables? Or is it going to be, like you said, is it not even just, is it keto? Do I need to be in ketosis? Is that where I need to be? Is that correct? Or do I need to be intermittent fasting? Is that correct? Or is it way more intense with macros? Do I need to be counting calories? Do I measure my scale, or do I measure fat content, or is it sugar, or is it not sugar? Like it's kind of a lot of information, and a lot of it is misleading because people are trying to push a fad or trying to push, some sort of get fit quick. So
yeah
like, how do you help somebody? I mean, I'm assuming that if you're working with a client, you're like, we are going to team up to find your best way. How do you do that to help a person who's like, I don't know where to go, even though there's so much to look up? I'll be doing this for 10 years.
yeah so I do a large amount of education with it. um but you still have people, so I guess my nutritional mindset, I guess, like what I would teach is to view it from more of like how do these nutrients work a little bit more on a cellular level, like totally forgot what I was going to say. um
I do that
but
all the time.
understanding
I get in the middle
God,
of flow and then I'm like, and I don't remember where I was taking this train. So don't worry about it. I do it all the time.
it's good to know. um
So you're
but
working on a cellular level and you try and get
yeah,
them to figure it out. Now that's obviously going to be tricky too. This has got to be an expertise. Like I
well
can't go like, well, let
understanding
me see your cells.
no just understanding like the basics of like biology and physiology. So which I mean I feel like that sounds way more complicated. Like I'm it's not in short, but take something like intermittent fasting. um yeah no, let's go with insulin resistance. I like that one. That's my favorite. People say go low carb. Caleb's a diabetic. There's type 1, type 2. Type 1's autoimmune, so that's one he's got for life, but you obviously should be managing it through lifestyle as well. Type 2, it's controversial to say. I think that you can reverse it, like if you take care of it early enough. And that's 100% lifestyle and diet. But with the low carb fad, our bodies prefer to run on glucose. It is our body's preferred source for energy. It can run on fat if it needs to, but that's not ideal. And a lot of times people are like, high blood sugar, that means there's too much sugar. I need to not have sugar. Like, sugar is in everything. Sugar is in fruit. I can't eat fruit. Fruit's horrible. And that's not really getting to the deeper issue. So there's people who are like, who recognize like, okay, like modern medicine or Western medicine may not always be like the answer to a lot of Band-Aid treatments. But then even in the alternative space, there's still a lot of like treatment for the symptom over the root cause. And like maybe they're better, slightly better, like natural remedies, but it's still not getting to the root of the issue. So with insulin resistance, there are a number of factors that can affect how sensitive your cells are to insulin. So insulin is a hormone that basically you can consider it like a key. So when you eat a carbohydrate, it gets broken down into glucose. That glucose gets into the bloodstream and it's supposed to go to the cells and your organs to be used for energy. However, glucose requires a key. It's not going to go in by itself. Insulin is that key. So when you have carbohydrates, your body produces insulin, and then it takes the glucose molecule by the hand, it gets to the cell, knocks on the door, and is like, hey, we're here. Like, use us. Now, fat, on the other hand, when you eat something that's, you can eat, okay, so when you eat fat, it gets digested, and fat doesn't need a key. Fat's very sure of itself. It will just barge right in. And so if you're eating a meal that is high in both fat and carbohydrates, the fat's going to make it to the cell a little bit faster. And if there's too much fat, then the cell is going to be like, okay, like we got all of our energy from fat. By the time insulin and glucose come along, it's going to be like, sorry, we don't have space for you. Like, you're going to have to wait until we use up this energy. So then the glucose gets kind of backed up in the bloodstream. That's high blood sugar. Your body doesn't like that. That's not good. So then it's going to shuttle it out and then get stored either as, is it glycogen? It's going to get stored as in the liver for future use, or it's going to get stored as fat. People are like, oh, well, then like sugar turns to fat. And it's like, well, no, you want your body to handle carbohydrates, and there's different ones, like some are good, some are bad, like not all are created equal, just like same with fat. But you want your body to be able to tolerate it well, you know? So when people are like, oh, well, I just need to go low carb. Well, why is that? Like, why doesn't your body handle carbohydrates properly? And that's just like kind of one example. Another one with like, just we run on stress hormones, and like, you know, people decide to go on a super, super low calorie diet, wanting to lose weight, and maybe they'll intermittent fast and they go an extended amount of time not eating. And then they're on top of that, they're adding in like these super, super intense workouts. And like, I'll pause for a second and say, like, men do handle stress better than women, just because, well, I still think it's important to not overly stress your body, because, so, sorry, my brain is like,
Yeah, we got a lot to bounce into here. And already right there, I could feel people just got triggered. They're like, "Oh no, she didn't."
I know I'm getting stressed.
Which is making some women get stressed right now. Like, "Oh no, she did not." Where the guys are like, "No, it seems about right. That seems correct." That doesn't stress me out at all.
Well, okay, so just biologically, and women historically obviously, like we can create life. Like our bodies were created to be able to sustain another human life. To get pregnant doesn't mean you have to get pregnant, but that's what your body was made to do. That's why
You heard
we
her.
get
Everybody has to get pregnant. You heard what Kelly said. Right now, everybody has to. So take these messages straight to heart. Challenge nothing.
we get like every month, like the body, like our bodies like lay the foundation to get a baby. We don't get a baby, we menstruate, and then cycle starts again. Like, so if our bodies do not feel safe, if our bodies feel stressed, because our body responds to stress the same way when we're in actual stress versus like in actual danger versus just like perceived, like, oh my gosh, I have to send this work email. Our bodies will respond the same way with releasing the same stress hormones, having the same effect. So women, because like your body's like, okay, we got to be able to like handle like getting pregnant, having a baby, it's going to give you every red flag if it does not feel safe. If it is overly stressed and undernourished, it is going to make you feel like crap. That's why women just, we generally like, we feel like we don't, again, we don't handle stress as well. Like physically, we have a lot more like noticeable symptoms, whereas men obviously do not get pregnant. So,
Well, there's a couple other factors too, just the psychology aspect of it. There's a few other
yeah,
factors that are very important. Like, if you look at like just the evolution for like just men and women, just like as your boys and girls, like up to around 10 to 12 years old, it's pretty equal. Everybody can play in the same realm. But as soon as
yeah,
we start hitting teenage years, things get very different. Like boys and girls start to change very, very differently, and then threat levels become different. Boys start become much stronger in their teenage years, especially upper body, become
yeah,
much stronger than girls. Well, that starts to present threat. Now take into account when girls start to transform into women. Well, now there's sexual pursuit. Well, now you're being hunted. People want you, and that becomes more and more danger because now you have to not only worry because now the opposite sex has turned into where we can't wrestle anymore because this is not even close. So there's a disadvantage. But then now also there's a sexual pursuit. So now I have to be even more on guard. So now I'm at a disadvantage physically in a fight, but also I'm, people are trying to get me or trying to, be with me. So I have to be more on guard and then take that stress on top of that and then throw on have to have a baby, which then you have to be even more on guard because I have to protect an infant or protect a little one, but I would be a vulnerable or liable, like a liability in these dangerous situations. If a
yeah,
guy was to attack, a woman has a disadvantage. And so like now I have to be on guard for like physically, sexually, and protect an infant. Like I better be on guard at all times. I have to be ready at any given moment because like that worryometer has to be higher because there is more danger. If there was danger for me, then, perhaps a guy, even though men are attacked far more than women,
mhm,
like it's just, there's not that same level of like, well, then you have to protect yourself. Well, natural disadvantage. So you have to be
yeah,
more aware. So I think women are wired to be more like we have to be on higher alert, because
yeah.
there's a higher chance of actual harm.
That's
So
interesting. I've never even considered that part of it.
it makes more sense. That's why the cortisol levels and also women also generally rank 3 times higher with negative emotions
Yeah,
than guys because there's a lot more to be concerned about. Like how often are guys, I mean, like aside from prison, which is probably a big, a different conversation, the raping of a man is, less of a concern societally. And
mhm,
so guys aren't on every turn worried about being sexually attacked. Does happen, but it's just not as common as like a woman should be concerned. Like you're going to be sexually pursued. You gotta be ready, even at the bar.
yeah,
Get away, dude. Back off. Not interested.
yeah,
And so there's a lot more stress involved. But what if somebody gets handsy? This is why men naturally are more protective. Like, don't touch women, man. Don't do that.
mhm,
Men are naturally going to be more protective. If you and Caleb were out and some guy grabbed you because he wants to talk to you, like the odds of you being able to kung fu your way out versus Caleb handling it, he's probably going to do better.
Yeah. And that's also like with like the male aspect of it, men are generally like they are the providers, they are the protectors, like that's just how it is. And that's why you guys are more able to handle a lot of stress. You don't have as many like physical like ramifications immediately.
We
I
do.
think with
We do. It's
guys,
just
yeah,
different.
it is different.
Well, take the account that we don't get the luxury of being saved.
Yeah.
People really discount protector. It's discounted like it should be. Nobody, like you put your life on the line to make sure I put my body in harm's way. I have 5 girls in my house. I have 3 teenagers and I got 2 adults. I got five girls in my house. I am first and last defense. If they get by me, nobody's got a chance.
Yeah.
And so in which case I have to put my body in harm's way, regardless of the threat, to keep them safe. I do not have the luxury of safety security. I do not have that luxury, which means I have to be prepared for the worst first. I don't get like someone's going to save me, someone's going to protect me, someone's going to take care of me. I am that. So I don't have that, like, well, who's going to save me? No one. No one will save me. Yeah, I am the only thing that does that. So I don't get the luxury of like, someone protect me. I don't get that. So I don't have the stress. Like, I sure hope someone saves me. There is no one coming.
Yeah, it's hard. Like,
people discount that one easily. They're like,
no,
well,
no, I'm not discounting it at all. But what I'm saying, no, no, but with physically, so just again, our bodies want to have babies. We're gonna like it's gonna give us like the red signs if it's not ready to do that. Men, because they take on that role of provider, protector, their body isn't going to, respond at like the same way and be as sensitive to stress. You guys obviously have a ton of stress. I'm not discounting that. But it is different in how the body reacts. And then you see like, again, like a woman, like those signs might be like your period's bad, you got cramps, you're moody, you're this, you're that. Men are a bit better able to kind of hold it in and like, keep it together until they can't. And that's why men just like men are more like how, I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but men are significantly more likely to drop dead of a heart attack because their body is going to not give you as many like obvious indicators until it's like, okay, like we're done. We can't handle this anymore. We're out. So
I'm going to go with you on this one. This is in my field. And so like the guys do have a lot of physical signs. There's a lot of signs that guys have to suppress, and we're in a society where most empathy for men is very low, not just well-being, but just like, does anybody even care about my feelings is it's a low feeling for men. They're like, nobody cares. I just will push it down and push it down and push it down. And this is where I work with men. I work with men across the world. Even a guy this morning had a big breakthrough. Like, I don't know what I did to deserve a brotherhood of people who really want to hear from me. Like, I have so many guys who are suicidal when we met, who are now like, I no longer feel so alone that I have nowhere to let it out. And, not to slight women, but for safety, security reasons, women generally aren't as empathetic for their man's feelings because it does take away from safety, security if they see their man as weak or pathetic or whatever judgment is put on that man for being too sensitive, vulnerable, or crying or whatever it may be. Now, I know people will argue the other way, but I have talked to a lot of guys who said, well, my girl said that she wanted me to be vulnerable and open, and I just let it all out, and I started crying in front of her, and she lost interest in me. And that has happened. I've talked to so many guys. They're like, I went with what was supposed to be. They said they wanted me to be more sensitive and more open, and they could handle it. And then I got friend zoned by my wife. and we're getting a divorce and she's sleeping with this dude at the office now. What the heck? It's a fulfilling prophecy that keeps coming up over and over again, where guys are like, let me try and do that with my woman, but they're good at well-being, not at empathy.
Yeah.
Now, this is maybe a societal thing where they're like, we're all supposed to be doing the same thing, so why should I care about your feelings? There's a lot of arguments happening where it's goofing up just love. But guys are able to have that empathy with guys. Guys are able to go, bro, I gotta let this out. I am so filled and I can't do this with my girl because I don't think she can handle how much would be pouring out of me. And she's not even trained to handle that. We take into account that just because we love somebody, they should be like at a therapist level ability to unload somebody else's damage. Like most are not. And so there's got to be a place. So my guys actually do have that. And so for any guys listening, there is a place where you can go, I got to unload before I talk to my girl. Yeah. Because like if I bring this level of pressure to my relationship, it's going to be a volcano. And I got to take some steam off, get a whole bunch of wisdom from guys that actually care about me, and then go and share my stuff with my girl when it's sorted out. Guys have always been there for each other, and we have a societal thing where guys aren't supposed to be there, and it's becoming more likely that a man will either have the heart attack, like you said, or commit suicide. It's more than 5 times more likely because they don't think that anyone cares and they're isolated. There's a reason that's happening. It's because men aren't meant to be alone like that. Men need men. We do. You have to have a competent mentor / brotherhood of people that actually care. So any guys who think like, I just got to push it down, I just got to shove it down, your cortisol, your stress, these guys have big, huge hearts, but nobody seems to care about them. And they really struggle. This is why you see, there's a million examples I can do with this, but there's a place that we built in the Warriors Way where these guys who are Marines and, Seabees and, they're badasses across the police officers and firefighters and, you name it. We've got the toughest of the tough dudes who can go, let me put my heart on the table, and we go like, give it to me, bro. There's a place, but it's super rare in this day and age. And I agree with you that a lot of Western medicine is saying, well, you just need medication because you have a chemical deficiency. No, you don't. You need a brotherhood. You just need someone who cares. You're not having a cortisol malfunction. There's something in your life that's not right. And your body, like you said, listen to your body. Something's wrong. Yeah. And it's not because you didn't have a pill today. It's because you didn't have a connection that you needed.
I like hearing that because I mostly work with women. The few times I've talked to men, or it's maybe a client's husband, she's like, oh, I want him to do this with me. They don't see a problem, or maybe it is that they're kind of pushing it down and they're like, well, I feel fine. And physically, they might look like, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's much easier to hear a girl be like, oh yeah, I feel like X, Y, and Z. It's so normal, but you don't hear that as much with men, and you don't hear, I guess, the physical symptoms you don't hear as much about. And it's really interesting hearing you talk about just how much how prevalent they are.
It's
because
tough for
that's definitely
guys.
something that's not known. And I'm mental health, not my strength. Not my
that's why I play. I pull guys out of hell. I got women's group also, so it's not like I just work with men. I have women's groups too. But it's a louder thing than guys will admit. But a lot of my guys, even when they're struggling, I'll give you just an example of how tough it is for a guy. Most men don't actually listen to advice until they're in crisis. Yeah. This is important for you to know, because if you're going, well, let's look at some of the stuff, you're like, I'm fine. Denial is not free, and it's not free for women, not free for men. Denial takes chunks out of you. If you're trying to live like I'm fine, when you're not fine, it's expensive. It takes a toll in here. Mm-hmm. And so when people try and go like, oh, I'm good. I know guys who like won't call the doctor until like it's hanging off the bone here. And they're like, you know what? Maybe I should call somebody. And you're like, that's been hanging off like that for a while. It's like, yeah, but now it's really hanging off. Like there's no like when the first symptoms is not going to be a phone call. It's going to be like, all right, I think I'm going to die in 30 minutes. So like we should maybe make an appointment. You know, a
You
lot of
described
guys
my
will get to
husband.
that point. But that's most guys. But
Yeah.
you have to look underneath that. It's not because they're dumb. It's not because they're foolish. It's because I cannot be seen as weak by my person. I am a protector. I need to be the strongest branch for you. For you to feel safe and secure, I cannot be weak or vulnerable.
Yeah.
So they cannot be perceived. Guys, like this is where you got to think about it. Think about this is a funny statistic. Tell me if you've heard this before. Women have higher pain tolerance than men. And I've heard it as high as like 3 times more pain tolerance than men. Have you
I've
ever heard
heard,
anything like that?
yeah, I've not heard like specific numbers, but I've definitely heard
It's
that.
been challenged in a few different studies. Some say it's the same, some say it's more for women. Like it's a debatable subject for sure. This is conclusive. But it's been suggested because women have pregnancy that women have higher pain tolerance than guys.
Yeah.
You've never heard this before, have you?
No, I've heard that. I haven't heard like specific numbers on like how much,
It's
but
all
I've
been
just
bullshit.
heard
I've
people
looked at
say
20
women are
studies. It's all
less
bananas
pain tolerant.
anyways.
Yeah.
So it seems more subjective than it should be. And some of the case studies are low numbers to even be able to say like real application. So if this is the
I'm just
case,
gonna bring you with me because I have to grab a charger, but
oh yeah, let's go get your charger. So this is the part that I thought was interesting. If women have far more pain tolerance and can handle more pain than a man because they have better receptors to handle pain, well, how come men are put in positions to handle way more damage? We have to
yeah,
do the fighting. We have to do the protecting. We have to fight way scarier things. We end up in more conflict and more battles and more dangerous jobs. Yet that would mean that we hurt 3 times more when we take damage. And you see a
yeah,
guy just, I ain't even shedding a tear. It's fine. You're like, it's just blood pouring. He's like, oh yeah, that's no big deal. Whatever. Now imagine it hurts 3 times more than it would for you, but he's just really not showing it.
yeah, yeah.
That's an
I don't
interesting
think,
point of view on this one where it's like, well, wait a second. Are these guys, we have to be what to be loved? How strong do we have to be be chosen and be okay? Like, how tough do we have to be? And so, like, if someone's struggling with their nutrition and they're struggling with their diet and they're struggling with their health physically or mentally, I'm not able to just go like, hey, I've got a couple symptoms here that feel a little bit rough. Because then, you see your girls start worrying about safety, security. Like, well, why didn't you tell me? I thought you were okay. What didn't you do that for? I need to know that you're fine. If you're not fine, I won't be fine. I need to know you're okay. And now her stress goes up. And now he's got even more stress because he's like, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything.
yeah, that's definitely hard when you hear like then you're just worried like, okay, I don't want to be a burden to someone else, and you feel like you have no one. That's yeah. I don't think, or I don't agree when people put men and women on the same boat by any means, because men are better at things, women are better at things. We're just completely different creatures,
Mhm.
like on every level. So I think, sorry, I'm just in that wire. But yeah, I think men definitely have it hard. Just they, yeah, they don't always consider their discomforts, or maybe they're just not even aware of them sometimes because they're so used to just suppressing them,
Right.
which isn't healthy.
Right.
From a nutritional standpoint, so the way I kind of like go about it, like so when when a guy intermittent fasts, like he's like, oh, I feel great. Woman does it, she's probably struggling with fertility. She's having like all these issues. And so like that's kind of like the aspect where men can maybe handle certain stress a little bit better, but they can until they can't. And then, you know, all of these, everything like comes down at once. With that, and like some people intermittent fast and like they feel great, and the whole like kind of like going back to like look it up for yourself is, I think people will do what they want to do, and that's the best way for someone to learn. You know, like you can try to guide them and give them the best information you can, but if I'm like, oh, like I don't think like intermittent fasting is going to be like the most supportive to you, you're probably not going to feel so great. They're going to be like, no, I've done it before, I'm going to do it again, I lost 10 pounds last time, I'm going to do it again. And I'm like, you know what, you do it. The best way for you to learn is to learn, like to experience it yourself, you know. So that's part of it, but the nutritional, I guess, guidelines that like I would give are pretty much the same, men, women, but it's just from like a slightly different perspective of like understanding, well, why is that, if that makes sense. So I don't know, just even with women of different ages, like I'll give a younger girl like, here's like some stuff to like help like relieve PMS, but I'll have an older one be like, well, I can't do that because like I'm postmenopausal. And it's like, well, no, it's the same things. The why might be like 1% different, but like the nutritional like guidelines are or like they're all the same. But anyway, the approach is usually, or the approach I take is try to do the least stressful things to your body, which kind of sounds funny, but like choose the most easy to digest foods, because if your body is in a state of compromised health, if it needs extra love, extra support, extra healing, you don't want to increase stress. Like you want to like decrease it as much as possible. You don't want to have food that's going to be harder on your stomach to like digest and absorb. You want something that's pretty easy to consume and, you know, digest and all that fun stuff. So that is like an easy way to decrease, you know, stressors, like choosing like the most nutrient dense bioavailable foods so that you're supporting your body, eating when you first wake up, like within 30 minutes, even if you don't have like much of an appetite, your cortisol levels are highest when you wake up. So you want to try to decrease those as much as possible. And then you want to be able to like balance your blood sugar. So
can you give people a couple examples of what kind of food are you talking about? Because they're like, okay, so wake up and eat a salad. Like, what are some examples of what you actually mean when you say like easy to digest foods?
Yeah. So gosh, there's so many, so many directions right now. I'm a big fan of like animal foods. They're easy to digest. They're very bioavailable. They have a lot of nutrients. But not just eating that, but you know, fruit, super great. Root vegetables are good for breakfast. Like, I mean, it kind of just depends on you. Some people are like, I cannot stomach anything right now when I first wake up, and that's okay. But even if you have like a small glass of orange juice, maybe a cheese stick if you can, just to pair it with a protein, but just to get some simple carbs, like orange juice, no pulp, that removes the fiber, so it's a little bit faster to kind of absorb. That's going to help your body start to feel safe because you've gone an extended period of time not eating. You're obviously not eating when you're sleeping. So that's when your stress hormones start to rise, cortisol gets like secreted. So then so it knows that like there's not food right away. So it's going to kind of like suppress your appetite a little bit. And so you kind of want to get out of that state when you wake up and
breaking
let
your
your body
fast.
know it's
How to break your fast in a safer way,
Yeah.
you know, make it easy on your body. I think people didn't. It was actually surprising how many people don't know the name breakfast comes from breaking your fast. They don't know that.
fast.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
what it is. It doesn't matter if you start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 in the morning. It's when you broke your fast from not eating when you rested.
Yeah.
And that's where the word breakfast came from. Break your fast. That's what breakfast is. And so people, it doesn't matter what time you do it. As soon as you start eating again, you broke your fast. And so, yeah, it's just being able to start off. And this goes even because I've gone intermittent fasting and I use it whenever if I ever need to cut, like that's been very beneficial for me. And my body is so hardcore in what I do. I've been able to go to a 4-hour window and been like,
Mhm.
I feel great because I give myself a 20-hour shutdown. Now, don't get me wrong. It took me months of training to get myself to a 4-hour window. So if somebody listens to this and goes, Rick said 4-hour window, I'm just going to start there tomorrow. That's like starting off with the rock workout. It's like, no, it took him 30 years to get there. Slow down there, Turbo. Like, this is one of those
Yeah.
things where, like, to break your fast in a healthy way, it may be the orange juice thing, or, a simple something that makes it so the first thing your body eats, tell me if you agree or don't agree. The first thing you eat after you're fasted, your body absorbs way faster. So make it something clean.
Yeah. I think so I always go back to like sourcing and quality matter. So whatever it is, like it just depends on like where you got it from. Like if you get a cheeseburger from McDonald's versus like something that you make at home that's from like whatever grass-fed beef, your body's going to respond very differently. So it's not as much of like a specific like, well, what to eat, what not to eat, and it's
Which
more like
which one's better? Do you think it's McDonald's or the grass fed? Which one?
totally McDonald's.
McDonald's, of course. You've heard it first.
Um, but it is interesting with the fasting and like I don't have skin in the game either way. But some people, the thought or one of the thoughts like with intermittent fasting is the reason people feel so great and like they're like, wow, like even like my eyesight, like I notice things like so much faster, like I'm so much more alert, is because you are forcing your body to run on stress hormones. Like you're forcing your body to run on adrenaline and cortisol. And some people, like you said, you are doing well with it. So like
I have noticed the difference for men and women on this.
yeah,
Like you said, go back 100, 200 years ago. Well, what was the likelihood of going to Walmart and having 3 to 4 meals a day 100 to 200 years ago versus
yeah,
have to hunt, have to gather, have to kill, how often do you make a kill? And any hunter will tell you, you don't just go out and just every day is 2 deer. Like it doesn't work like that, like you'll go out and you'll eat maybe once a day or once every 2 days, and our body was more attuned for thousands of years to like not be eating 3 square meals a day.
yeah,
And so sometimes it is one big meal and that's all you get because that's all you got. And
yeah,
so they didn't notice if you've ever done a 48-hour fast, whenever I would do one, somewhere around like between 32 to 36 hours, it's your body does kick into like, oh, holy crap, I am ready to go, super clear mindset. But it's because we were built for thousands of years. Our ability to adapt to our lifestyle was to be like, you have to make a kill, you have to not miss it, you have to make sure your family and people are depending on your clarity to make sure you do a good job here. And so
yeah,
we would get hyper focused, and I noticed myself I would too in long fasts. And,
yeah,
but I do that every few months. This is not like I do twice a week. I do 48-hour. No, even at 24, I would do once a week to once every couple of weeks. It's not an everyday thing. So this is where
yeah,
there's an argument there of like, what's best, what's not best. Like if there is an application, especially for men. Now, Andrea, my woman, like my girl, Andrea, if she's ever doing hers, the struggle is real. She can't do a 4-hour fast. That's not happening. 6 is the farthest she's ever gone, and she hated it. So 8 is her window. And even that is like, that's pretty tight.
yeah,
And so it is different for men to women. You're not wrong because we don't have to sustain another human being in here. But what does it
yeah,
take to be able to have that operate and be able to sustain 2 people in one body?
yeah.
It's
A
way
lot more,
different, way
a
more.
lot of food. I forget what the saying is. It's like women are more like grazers versus whereas men are more I forget the word.
What do we got?
Something with a G.
Yeah, we gotta go
But
hunt. Yeah.
but like women like will like some women find that they do really well, like eating like smaller, more frequent meals, whereas men are like, nah, like I'll have like one big meal and like I'm good for like till next meal.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't like necessarily, and obviously like it's unique to everyone. Like these are very general statements, but like usually like men are like better able to like, have a big meal and then like they'll like they're fine. Like they feel totally fine. Whereas women, like they have a little bit more trouble. Again, this is assuming someone's like not in the state of like optimal health. Ideally, like you'd be totally fine. You can like eat, not eat, and like you'll feel like okay. But a lot of people today are in just a compromised state of health just because, food isn't even food anymore. And like you have to do a lot of work to find real food. So I think a lot of people are in a state of subpar health
Well,
without maybe really.
is it okay if I talk about, you said food isn't really food anymore? I got some obvious ones that are like right up your alley of like it seems like watch out. So I want your opinion. I got 3 of them at least. Opinion. High fructose corn syrup. Opinion.
Fan?
What's that?
Not a fan.
Don't do that. You said that's not good.
No, he said not a fan.
You're not a fan, right? What do you think? Should people be drinking high fructose corn syrup?
No, sir.
Is that healthy? I thought it was in health food.
No. It is
Okay.
not.
What about aspartame? Health food? It's in diet food.
Oh my gosh. No. I truthfully, I couldn't tell you like the specifics like off the top of my head, but I know enough to say like, no, like why are you tricking? Because there's like the brain part too. Like you're tricking your brain into thinking that it's like having like some sugar. So then like it again, like there's so many different theories around nutrition, which is why I'm like, okay, you kind of gotta like pick. I lay somewhere in the middle where I could see both sides, but like some say, well, your brain is going to tell your stomach like this is sugar, so it's going to release like the hormones to like it's going to release insulin to try to like take the sugar out of like your bloodstream, shuttle it in like to be used, but it's not actual sugar. So then you're going to have a dip in your blood sugar levels, and then that's going to be followed by a spike, and then you're going to have like unstable energy levels, and that's going to lead to a slew of like issues.
Mm-hmm.
Other people like, and then there's like the other aspect where it's just like so much sweeter than regular like sugar
Well,
that
I think you're talking about sucralose. Sucralose is the new hotness in everything, which is 0 sugar, 0 calories. It is all 0. It is not sugar. It is not calories, but it tastes 10 times sweeter.
I just I there's always like a new thing, and I have people like show me like a bar and they're like, look at these ingredients, are they good? And I'm like, I could probably tell you what like half of them
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Um
If there's
and I
more
think
than
some
4 things in it, probably not.
and like you have like sucralose, you've got like just all of these different like chemicals, and like it's like wait, what does that mean? Um I just Food is fuel, like why the heck are you trying to eat something that is 0 calories? Calories are units of energy. Why are you putting something into your body that is like not actually supporting you in any way?
Whoa, I can
Like,
keep my calories low if I do this thing.
well, why are you trying to keep your calories low?
Because
Like,
I ain't trying to gain weight, sister. You just told me
okay, well,
skinny is healthy.
stop it. Okay, well, okay, so this goes back to eating and eating enough, whether you're intermittent fasting or not. You still want to make sure you're getting in a healthy amount of calories.
Mhm.
And when people are cutting calories like excessively, you're forcing your body to go into a starvation state, and that's going to cause your body to, again, our bodies are very smart. Our bodies want to keep us alive. And if it senses that there's a lack in fuel or calories, it's going to put us into more of a starvation state. And it's going to slow your metabolic rate, so you're not burning through your fuel as quickly. And metabolism is so much more than just like how quickly you burn fat. That is part of it, but it's how efficiently, well, at least in my opinion, it's also how efficiently your body is using that fuel. And if you are in a starvation state, your body, very smart, but it doesn't know if you're forcing it to starve or if there's an actual famine going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to react like there is a lack of food. We are in danger. So we are going to burn as few calories as possible. We're going to not worry about the things that aren't like absolutely necessary to sustain life right now. So that's why some people, like your hair might fall out, your hair might thin, you're not going to feel great. Your skin health, who cares about that? Digestive health, like what is that? Like we're just focused on keeping you alive. And that's what happens when you're like restricting calories. And it's very difficult talking to people who are just focused on their weight because, well, again, it depends. Like you have like someone who's like
I
a
see.
healthy weight.
I see what you're doing, Kelly. Are you telling these ladies not to use a scale?
Stop it.
Uh-oh. Where are we going here? Don't worry about your weight. What do you mean? How else do I measure how healthy I am?
Well, okay, this is assuming people hearing this have critical thinking skills, okay?
Oh, you're putting a lot out there. You listen, my
You're
audience is probably pretty
stressing me
solid.
out.
Because we push pretty hard for like the mental health. So we challenge everything. The Warriors way is challenge everything. And I am going to go that direction with you in a little bit because I do see you pushing against the norm. So challenge everything. But yeah, assume that the audience here has critical thinking. The people who listen to me are going to be like, we do challenge things. I have a warrior
Okay.
who wants to know more.
So this is assuming, again, people tend to overcorrect and they're like, forget the scale. I'm like 100 pounds overweight, but like I'm very obviously in an unhealthy state, but they said, don't worry about it. They said, listen to my body. I'm going to go eat 3 cheeseburgers. And like,
Listen to your body. You want cheeseburgers.
this
Kelly
is where
said,
like,
she said McDonald's. She said, get 3 cheeseburgers.
say,
I've been taking notes from Kelly this whole time. She said, wake up, first thing, 3 cheeseburgers from McDonald's.
no. All right, I'm
And
going to
then get
walk
on
you
the
through,
scale.
like, I'm going to walk you through. Okay, well, yeah. Okay. So with the scale, I think it can be a helpful tool. I think it also depends on like where you are. If you are within like a healthy range, like you to some degree, you can just look in the mirror and tell. I wouldn't worry about it so much. If you're someone who's like super, super overweight, again, that doesn't necessarily mean like weigh yourself every day, because if you see like a pound difference, people tend to freak out. But depending on where you are, if you're again, it's very unique. So if I'm talking to someone who is like thin and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so fat, that's a different conversation from someone who might be overweight and like, well, how do I get healthy? Because for someone who is already like on like the smaller end of the spectrum, I wouldn't tell them as much to worry about calories. Whereas, well, okay, I think calories do matter, obviously. Like there is this obsession with tracking them where it's unhealthy, and we don't like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I just need to eat under like 1,200 or 1,400 calories, and like that's insane. Like that is not enough. Like that's for a child. And I do like it's the TDEE calculator. If you go online, it can help you kind of get like a general idea of like what what the baseline amount of calories you should be intaking, and you should not go under that. Depending on your energy levels, you should increase it. But I think it's a good tool to some degree have a general idea of how many calories you're intaking. You don't have to micromanage it, like, because that's not realistic all the time to do. Some people like they do better at it. Some people they might be very prone to having an eating disorder, so maybe it's not that great. Some people it might be super, super good because they have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a useful tool, but you have to use your discernment. Are you someone who could handle like looking at it, or are you someone who just like needs to kind of not for a while?
It's pretty
But
tough on those. I had a group that I ran. My business before this was called Just a Mile a Day, and it just got people started. And we did start getting into challenges for, if you have a goal, what's your goal? I don't care if it's do your mile faster. I don't care if it's lose 10 pounds. I don't care what your goal is. Pick a goal for you that's your goal. And whenever we would do anything that was like associated to the scale at any point, and I think it was Andrea started a group where she's like, we're going to lose weight. And I'm like, I'm not a big fan of the scale being the measurement system, because I myself have seen up to a 7-pound fluctuation in one day.
Wow.
And so that's a really big window of like, well, that's how accurate this is. I'm like, that's too big of a window to say there's an accuracy for this. But I have noticed when people use the weight scale for a measurement of health, there is way more stress and frustration and, being deflated and defeated if this thing doesn't go the way they need it to, almost. And I've seen people do it on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. And that's where it starts getting into the stress, or even like the parts where I would be worried. I'm like, this is not healthy. This is, it probably is on par with standing on the scale to see how smart you are.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not a good way to measure that.
No, I don't know how you feel about this, but what I like, ideally, obviously not everyone has access to it, but my favorite tool, like if you wanted to measure, like, because some people just like, they like numbers, they like to see success. Like for me, I like having something that's very obvious, but I just like, I don't weigh myself, because when I work out, I gain a few pounds, and like, it's maybe just like retaining more water, whatever it is, but I'm just like I know I'm getting stronger, but I want to see something more like telling. I love, which I don't do often, but like I've done in bodies before, and I feel like that's a better measurement of like muscle to fat. But again, this really depends on the person, because if you have this, like, if you have a goal, like you're trying to like, you're training for like some sport, you need to be a certain body fat percentage. Like that's a really useful tool if you have a healthy understanding and a healthy relationship with all that stuff. Some people, horrible idea. So I just realized it is not realistic to tell a lot of people who maybe are obsessed with this, like the number on the scale, to be like, just throw it out, because people are like, I can't do that. We're done. So it's just a matter of trying to meet people where they're at and getting them to start to learn, again, just at least to pay attention a little bit more to how they're feeling. And if the scale helps, like try to limit it to, again, if you're someone who checks it like 3 times a day, once a day, then maybe like once every few days, once a week. If you're like, it depends on the person. Some people hate weighing themselves, some people love it.
So you do
but
a
I
lot
do
more
think,
like trying to tailor it to like, because it's hard, because I know that the broad generalizations are really tricky, because like, people are different. Like you said, working with a male versus female, working with overweight versus underweight, working with this, diabetes versus not diabetes, working with like different levels. There's definitely going to be a conflict there.
it definitely depends on the person. So I have a general, I guess, protocol that I will take clients through, because I think that there's just like a lot of information that you like want to learn, but then there's like in between each thing, like it'll be more personalized. So depending on like the person. So I had a friend who I was working with, and I was like, okay, like what I tell people is like, maybe track your calories for just like a week. And the thought there is more, make sure you're not under eating, because a lot of people tend to undereat without realizing it. Like I honestly, if I'm not intentional with what I'm eating, it is very easy for me to just like not eat enough. And she messaged me and she was like, hey, like I'm actually like, I'm kind of like, I track my calories too much, to the point where like I'm like, I don't even have an apple because I don't want to like add that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? No, eat more. Don't forget about tracking them. So for her, that's not as ideal, but for someone who might be eating a ton, not really paying attention, not very conscious of their health, then that could be a useful tool. So it does depend on the person, but
Yeah.
generally I think the thought is make sure you're eating enough, but some people, they can't handle, even if they are under eating, like just the thought of adding more calories, like they don't like to think about it. So it
I
really
think it's
does
so
depend.
interesting to say that. Like, this is why, like, I find, because I had that health company for years. I did just a mile a day. We did that for a handful of years. And the reason that I went more into the, psychology, philosophy, the mindset, all of the parts that I do now is because of what is happening to make it so if you say, hey, check your calories, it turns into a neurological issue. I'm
Yeah.
having I can't do it. I'm throw away the scale. I can't even process. And I'm like, what is the connection here to this, to just a tool, or to, one measurement, or so? What is happening to make it so this is struggling because of information? I'm stressed out. I'm freaking out. I won't even eat an apple. And I'm like, what
Yeah.
is happening? What is that? There's a thing here that needs to be worked on, because this is a reflection of the health of this. And so that's where I ended up shifting, because I built 2 workout programs that were made that you can work out anywhere. Work out from home, just get some workout bands. You can do this workout in 5 minutes at home, no excuses. I built a warrior program that was hardcore, 400 rep workout. Let's go. Like, it's a killer.
Yeah.
Well, none of that matters if this isn't okay. It doesn't matter the diet. It doesn't matter the workout. It doesn't matter the strategy if this is not okay. So I started actually getting really concerned when I would see people yo-yo their
Mhm.
default program. They would go real hard after a goal, some 90-day goal, some 60-day goal. And then the worst thing that would ever happen when it came to health and fitness, you want to know what the worst thing is?
What?
Winning. When they hit their goal, they quit going for goals, and they would slide right back into the old behavior and then gain it all back or fall back into their old spot where they were again. And then, like, oh yeah, now I can do it again. And they would start back where they were before and then go, I'm going to lose my 10 pounds, or I'm going to get my goal. And they would work the butts off, literally, again, hit the goal, like, I did it. We're like, yeah. And then they would stop and
Yeah.
slide right back into old behavior again. And there was never any addressing of the default program. Do you see what you keep falling back into? And instead of, like you mentioned, and I agree, let's get to a root of what's happening instead of like trying to get a result. Let's figure out, why is it programmed that if I said, hey, just see how many you're doing as just an inventory, that you're having an issue with apples?
Yeah. Like that's difficult when it gets that far. And honestly, if like one thing I tell people, I'm like, I will refer you out is when it comes to like eating disorders.
Mhm.
I don't think I am equipped. I know I'm not equipped to, like, I know I can help to some degree, but that's a much deeper
That's where I
problem.
play. I play in that area. We
Yeah.
get down to, where did this belief system, where did this curse get in there? Because you're not born with this. But there was
Yeah.
some belief system that corrupted your system to make it so you are no longer worthy or good enough, or, worth even the apple. And I've seen it in
Yeah.
multiple curses. And this comes in from like multiple societies. So tough right now. I'll give credit to girls. Some of the curses are like stacked. Makeup, like health
Yeah.
and beauty, the burden of beauty on girls. It used to be the burden of beauty, even in my lifetime, was just local. Your
Mhm.
comparison circle was like your school, work, community. Like, you didn't have that big of a circle to go like, well, how do I measure up against, 1,000 people or a few hundred people? Okay. Well, at least you can find your way. Well, now if like you're very beautiful, or you can, at least get the illusion of what, society says beauty is, well, now you're compared on a global scale to the 0.001 percenters, and you will never, ever be good enough compared to this. Well, what does that do to the mental health of someone who's trying to make their body be healthy when it's compared to this chick in Russia or this Brazilian girl or this, this Australian chick. And you're like, it's the globe now. It's no longer my community. Well, that's really tough, because how do you help somebody with their physical health when their mental health is compared to the globe that you're not good enough?
Yeah.
How do you,
And you
well, I mean,
don't,
that's where I work. I'm like, you got cursed. Let's get in and
yeah,
find
and you
who
don't
put
even
that
know
in.
how they're feeling. Like, I feel like that sounds funny, but like, you don't know how healthy they actually are. Like, I mean, this is probably not the best thing to say, but
We can be
like,
real.
if you just want to go for an aesthetic, go for an aesthetic, but like, you're going to feel like crap probably.
You do.
Like, again, when I look back at pictures when I had cancer, before I knew I had cancer, I'm like, what the heck was wrong with me? Like, I am a skeleton. And I thought, like, wow, like, I don't know why I'm losing weight, but this is amazing. And now I see pictures, I'm like, I was so sickly thin. But that's what a lot of, and again, body type, body shape, whatever, like,
Well,
it all matters. Like, it
there's a thing
varies.
there. Do you want to know one of the curses that happens from this? People who have to perform in those environments. One of my women's head coach, she was a professional dancer for like on stage, Disney and all that stuff. She was a big performer and doing like any type of professional dance. And I don't mean stripping. I mean, like, she was like on stage ballet and all the dances and all the stuff. She was a big stage dancer. And in these industries that have people whose job is to be a judge, when there's people's job is to judge you, that's their job. This creates issues because you have to measure up to somebody's subjective opinion of what they like and don't like. And your team wins or loses based on somebody's opinion of how you looked or how you did something. So it only makes sense that good enough is impossible.
Yeah.
So it would make sense. You're like, I was a skeleton. That wasn't healthy, but your entire belief system was routed in being judged for your worth by
Yeah.
people whose job is to judge you. Well, that
Yeah.
creates a lot of issues.
It does. It is. And that's honestly like a big thing I learned. But again, everything, it's like, take it with a grain of salt. Because, okay, not to be mean, I know you said don't be like PC or whatever.
Be real. Be real.
But like, then you have people to the other extreme where they are morbidly obese and they're like, I am beautiful. And it's like, beauty has nothing to do with it. Like, let's just talk health. Like, I'm glad you got the confidence, I guess. But then it's like, well, how confident are you if you are getting so offended by someone maybe disagreeing with you?
You are
But that
right.
aside,
How confident are you if you get offended so easily?
yeah.
Let me just put
So
out there in my field, I'm just going to help most women, and this may help you, especially in being able to help people crack through what's making it so they do not feel okay. Denial. I have not had a woman yet where denial was not in the core of their curses. It is a protector. It's a protection unit. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm beautiful. I'm great when things are not okay. It's the persona, it's the mask, it's the makeup, it's the dress, it's the outfit, it's the attitude, it's the boss babe. It's all of this that is fake, but it is not authentic. And it's because you're struggling to allow authenticity because you have to fit some sort of narrative. It is not free. Denial takes chunks out of your soul. If you think about what denial does, is it acts like your best friend and your protector, and it makes you feel like I'm good when you're not really addressing the things that are not good. And it's the same thing that guys who don't ask for help, the same thing with women who say, I'm beautiful, even though they're 200 pounds overweight. You are going to have health issues. And that's not my opinion. That's what the body does when you're holding 200 pounds more than your frame is built for.
yeah.
And this is not a judgment of beauty. This is just, that's if I put 200 pounds on your back right now, like, here, hold this 200 pounds, your bones will struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. It is alarming how delusional people are today and how much pressure there is to affirm their delusions.
Correct.
And if you don't, then you're not politically correct or there's something wrong. Like, it's just, if you're overweight, like, that's not healthy. I was significantly, like, I've always been like a healthy weight until I got sick. Like, I mean, I would still be considered, I guess, healthy, but I know my body and like where it would be when I'm eating right, working out. And that was like, I was eating at that point, but my body just like, you lose weight because I was sick. And so when I started going through chemo, plus like the stress of like, just like the medication, some people lose weight on chemo. I gained weight and my body needed it. But now, so I finished chemo and then I ended. So I started weighing 115 pounds. I finished like 140, 142, 43. And like, that's not fun. I was still like a healthy weight per se. I was on the heavier end of it. But my body kind of, it needed that space. But I was sickly thin. Some people might be forcing their body to do something that it really shouldn't do. You have women with different body types or men with different body types, trying to look like that model who is a different height, has a different stature, has a different everything. And some people are successful because they are forcing their body to they're starving themselves, they're overstressing it, they're doing anything that they can to get to that place. So when you have someone who's coming out of that and like starting to heal, some people do need to gain weight. Some people are underweight. And again, take that with a grain of salt, because that doesn't mean if you are overweight, you should gain more weight. It's just use some common sense and recognize that.
Denial will block that. You cannot, common sense is not that common. It's just not. You got to remember, belief systems are corruptible right now. And if anybody has one of these things, if you guys have one of these devices, if you have an apparatus that you would call a phone, but almost never use it as a phone, if you have one of those, that thing's main job is to give you information that you looked for. You will create some sort of an algorithm that will give you whatever you're looking for and reaffirm you from whatever opinion and subjective point of view. Someone will Wikipedia for you. You will find what you're looking for, and its job is to give you as much as you want. This will make it so that for you, even if you're giving real information and the truth and things that have been working over and over again, well, my apparatus has told me otherwise. Yeah. These belief systems are easily corrupted. I do want to take this into that warrior aspect you've mentioned many times during this conversation. And this is something that we teach in the Warrior's Way very hard, is to challenge everything. Challenge me, challenge you, challenge the results, challenge the lab coats, challenge the research, challenge peer review. Is it real? Is it working? Is it not working? Let's read as much as we can. Let's find the commonalities. Let's find the differences. Let's challenge everything. And then there's a quote I like from Bernard Heesch. And the quote that we use often is, advances are made by answering questions. Discoveries are made by questioning answers. And so we should be asked more questions, get in further. Is this for me? Is this not for me? Is it working? Is it not working? Do I feel better or feel worse? Not do I look better or look worse? Like, we're not focused as much on feel or think as much as what is your result. We're not working on effort. We're working on, what did you get? How does it look? And even if people are winning, they feel like they're losing, because then you're up to the next level, and every new level brings a new devil. And so now if you were in the top 5% in your community and whatever, well, then they'll compare you to the top 1%. And if you get in the top 1%, then they'll compare you globally to the top 0.05%. And if you get in the top 0.05%, the top 0.1%, you're just never going to be enough. And if you're the top 0.1%, well, then you're too much something.
Yeah. And
You're
I
too
don't know.
fat, too skinny, too thick, too thin. You're a skeleton or you're too chunky. You can never win because if you base
Yeah.
your
Well,
worth on judgments, you will never be good enough.
everyone has an opinion
Mhm.
on everything. Oh my goodness. And
Challenge
on
everyone.
social media, it's so much easier for like to get like 30 different opinions on something like
Mhm.
within like a few minutes. So yeah, it's definitely important to challenge things. And
Well, if they don't have a defense, if you do not have an armor that is designed to be able to handle negativity, like you can
yeah,
have 30, you tell me you haven't seen someone who does this. They'll post a picture and they'll feel good. I look good in this photo, and they'll post it. And you see, you look beautiful, you look wonderful, you look good. And then you have one person who's like, this is disgusting.
yeah,
It's like all of the good stuff just got deleted. And there's just one comment that says this is disgusting. And then they'll like never wear that outfit ever again.
yeah.
I've seen
It's sad.
people develop complexes from someone they don't even know.
It's horrible.
This is where we have to train this. This thing needs training.
Yeah,
You have to have some sort of understanding, critical thinking, challenge everything. How does that work? Does that work for me? What is my authenticity? Is that truly the way I should feel or not feel for who I am? Or am I taking on the beliefs or judgments from other people and creating an entire identity around just nonsense people spouted out of their face who don't even know me? In fact, if you really dig in, how well do you know you? And you're like, I don't know if I'm lucky 30% and they know less than one. Why would I listen to them?
yeah, yeah. People are very quick to make a judgment just on like a snapshot, and then you have the other side of it, or that person who posted a picture and then got really discouraged. They're gonna look at someone who's like their ideal body, face, everything, and they're gonna be like, I need to look like that. And you don't know what that person is doing to look like that. You don't know what they're going through.
Which now we know. Thank you for teaching everybody. Use the scale every day. 3 cheeseburgers from McDonald's. You know,
No.
drink
No,
only sucralose.
no. I just there's yeah, I don't know.
I'm just kidding,
Come
by
on,
the way.
Buster. I
Just
know.
kidding, obviously. Kelly's like, I did not say that. What?
No,
No.
but some people, not probably not on here, but there are people who would be like, "Oh, okay," like they're like, "Oh, that's just what
Finally,
it is."
someone who gets me.
Yeah, it is alarming. um, yeah, food is cool. I think that there's a lot of magic that can happen when you learn how to fuel your body and support it ideally, and understand how it works, and ultimately know from your experience, because like everybody is different, and some people can't, like I like dairy, I can drink milk. Caleb, he's allergic to dairy, so he can't drink milk. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be like, well, you can't be healthy unless you're drinking dairy. Like no, just because it's good for me doesn't necessarily mean it's good for him. And it's just, nutrition is very unique to each person. And I think with every diet, everyone says, well, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. So it's funny every time like I hear like another one and like someone like say that. So I try not to put any like label on like how I might like try to teach people how to eat or whatever. Because even that is getting like more trendy. But just really supporting your thyroid function, understanding like gosh, I could go in different directions. But your metabolism refers to, you know, all the chemical processes in your body to keep you alive and healthy and happy. If your thyroid is not working optimally, then your metabolism is going to suffer, because your thyroid is pretty much the conductor of like all those processes. And I guess like the main thing that I like to emphasize is like decrease stress as much as possible if you are in a state of healing. And again, it varies from person to person and where their body's at. I did chemo. I was very sick for a long time, fine. But when I finished, I had to take it slow when I was going back to exercising, because walking up the stairs, I was like, I'm gonna die. So I had to like get stronger, but I also like, I would go through phases where I was like, I'm just gonna push myself. I'm gonna do this for a month. I'm gonna like push through it. And I didn't listen to my body, and it wrecked me. And I would just be back to being so much more exhausted. And I would have been like, I started healing. I was feeling much better. And then I pushed too hard. And now like I overstressed my body. Exercise is a stressor, but it's a very good stress, if you are nourishing your body properly as you do it. But anyway, like decreasing stress, but again, it depends on the stress, because certain types of activity that cause like stress, like those are good things, like working out. But the whole thought with the thyroid is when your thyroid, it produces different hormones. There's T3, T4. I'm not going to even try pronouncing it right now. But basically you have T3 and T4 thyroid hormones, and T4 is produced more in your thyroid than T3 is. T3 is more active though. And in your liver, T4 can get converted into the more active T3 hormone. And you want more of that so that your body is, functioning optimally, so that your metabolism is working well and thriving. Your liver, if it's overburdened, which stress will overburden it, not balancing your blood sugar will overburden it. There's so many different things that will put a lot of stress on your liver. And we already live in a very, like, just everything is toxic, or like there's so much that like is going against us already, that you really, like, your body just needs extra support and extra kindness. And so understanding what foods, and I won't go into it now just because like I feel like I'm going in so many different directions. But understanding what nutrients you need, and yes, macros, super important, but we tend to overlook the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals that are super, super important. And like, again, I've said this, mental health, all you, friend. Like, I am not, like, I am only, when I got sick was when I started to like learn about it, because up until that point, it was like, everything's mental, can't raise my arm, mental.
There's a degree of reality to it.
Yeah.
I think it all goes together. There's a balance to these things.
Yeah.
If I'm reading
I'm
you
still
right,
learning that.
I feel like if I'm reading you right, this is really difficult to explain because I'm trying to be general for something that's so specific to each person. And so I can't give you a broad answer. Like if I'm working with somebody who's struggling with a drinking addiction versus somebody who's, struggling with a loss of a loved one, these are not the same conversation, even if it's in the same area we have to work in. So you got somebody who's got an eating disorder versus somebody who's, just trying to, who's fighting cancer, for example. They're both health related, but different battles. And so if I hear you right, it's hard to give just a blanket answer because each person's got a different thing. And so if I were to assess what you're trying to get to, it's like reach out, work with you so you can say, this is the exact things that would work for you. And because you've gone through the school of hard knocks, you've beaten cancer, your husband has diabetes, and you figured out how to sort through. You guys have gone through and found the way that does work because there were gaps in the advice. There was gaps in the programs. There's some missing pieces, and you're finding missing pieces in a holistic way that helps people take control back, because food is not just fuel, it's also medicine. So go ahead and treat it accordingly, and don't overdose, but don't take not enough.
I couldn't have said it better. Yeah. I will. Okay. I feel like I don't want to like, yes, I'd love to work with people. Love it. But in the end, you're still the expert in your own body, and I can help make it a lot easier And I think it is good to have accountability and people to work with and people who are experienced to help guide you. But even just with how we take, there's that authoritarian approach with medicine. It's like doctors, like God. I read, I research, I taught myself, I share everything that I learned. I work with you. I research what I hear you're struggling with. I do my best, but at the end of the day, it's still your responsibility to, put it into action and to really be confident in that. Cause I have some people who are like, oh, like, just tell me what to eat. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. That's going to be like another diet. Yeah.
This association still comes in to challenge their warrior part of them because they want it just to be, they're going to be just submissive and just be, tell me what to do. Well, I'm trying to teach you how to fish, not just here's a fish.
Yeah.
Not every day is fish. Some days you got to go pick berries and some days you're going to have to eat some meat. Like, it's finding balance within yourself. And this is your personal journey. And I think this is where you can be a guide, but I am not the one who's going to spoon feed you.
Yeah, I think, that's, you said it.
Yeah. And so I get where you're coming from with this. All right. Let's say like we've got people who are like, okay, I've made it this far in and I kind of dig what she's saying. And I want to see, how do I personalize this for myself? What are my personal things so I can figure out my best strategies? How do they get in touch with you? What do we do? Where do they go?
So just book a Zoom call or phone call, whatever works best for you. I have a Calendly. So my website is nutritioning.co. So it's like nutrition, but a verb, like let's nutritioning, like let's do that. So nutritioning.co is my website, and it's just a landing page for you to book a call. You want to email me, my information's on there for to contact. But yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. This way they can actually have the phone call they need to, so they can get the specific information from you. We're all different. We're in different parts in our journey. And a lot of times we have people judging our journey more than us being able to try to understand ourselves in it. And I think that it'd be good to have some guides. And if you're able to help people take some sort of A, ownership, and B, responsibility for their own personal health by being able to say, just don't put poison in this thing if you're trying to make it run better. Well, it's going to be good to have somebody who can at least guide you in this journey to fast forward about 10 years of figuring it out in a handful of weeks.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and have those 10 years be healthier because they have to talk to you.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. Stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you, Callie.
There's so much I wish I could. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and cut out that giant gap in time when Virginia storms took out the internet.
Thank you so much.
But no, appreciate you so much. We'll follow back up. If you can, please just send all your info to us. We're going to make sure people have access to your stuff. And let's do what we can to try and help people push and challenge against like some of the stuff that seems like there's obvious gaps in what's happening with food, with, health information, and finding what personally works best for us. Thank you for your time and being able to share what you found and what's been working.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thanks for all the questions. That was good practice.
Well, you're going to have a lot more practice because people will reach out and want to ask questions. So good job.
I love that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, go crush it today. Tell Caleb, keep warrioring it on, whatever that verb is. and then I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future. So we'll follow up and we'll do this again another time.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.